All right, Daily Ticker Time on a Wednesday, brought to you as always by our great friends at Pelican Brewing. Experience your hops differently with Pelican's new hop-infused hard seltzer. Hard hops, blackberry infused with strata hops, made with real blackberries, and available now at a store near you. Let's talk some college football with our great friend Bill Connelly.
Ah, the SP+.
He did something bold, and he released the SP Plus model that was not behind a paywall, free for everybody to go read. You can go follow him on Twitter at ESPN_Bill C. You can find the rankings there and all of his great work, of course, at ESPN.
Do you think he has a say in the paywall?
I don't know if he does, but I just want to start with a blanket question. Bill, why do you hate my team?
I mean, I don't know which team we're talking about right now, but I'm very, very, very curious about Oregon, if we're being honest here. I'm just going to jump right in.
Jump right in. You do it, Bill. You go for it.
Jump in that pool, Dan Lanning. Let's go. Bill, I got a question on Oregon, okay? Because I'm also curious. Yeah. I give them the respect. I think the defense is probably going to be pretty good. I think that offense is geared to make life easy on the quarterback, right? Like, people gave Bo Nix these check down Charlie things the year he goes to the Heisman, but like it worked. It was exactly what their offense needed, and he hit on the deep ball. We no longer have 26-year-old quarterbacks at the helm here, and I don't know what to make of Dante Moore. Is that your question mark as well, the quarterback position?
Yeah, I mean, basically, when I was walking through their lineup, and I mean, before we go any further, Oregon's projected 7th. They're like 2 points out of the top 4. So, I mean, it's not like, I don't actually hate your team, basically, is what I'm saying. But when I was walking through their lineup and piecing it all together, there just weren't nearly as many, like, proven entities as I expected to see. Like, in my head, as Oregon entered the offseason, I mean, you're going to be relying on at least a couple offensive line transfers, potentially very good ones. I mean, all conference at their last stop and whatnot. That's fine. I love Mekhi Hughes. I think that's going to be just fine at running back. But yeah, I mean, we don't really know what the quarterback position is going to bring. We don't really know how much help Evan Stewart has in the receiving core and the defense. I agree. I'm just going to assume the defense is fine. But I mean, 4 of last year's top 5 defensive tackles are gone. Safety's brand new, or secondary is brand new. Mm-hmm. So I mean, yeah, there are a lot more questions to answer than I kind of realized until I put the roster together.
Damn, dude, he hates your team.
He hates my team.
He hates your team.
Nobody's given us a chance this year, according to Bill. Only 7th, the disrespect. God,
5 and 7 on the
way. Let me ask you this, though, because I was reading through this, and I just love looking ahead to next season. And there was a compelling opinion out there, or a thought out there in college football last year, that Ohio State was a bit of a last of a dying breed. Like, they recruited at such an elite level. They brought in a transfer quarterback. And then, oh, by the way, they had everybody that potentially could have gone to the NFL essentially returned for another year, and they brought everybody back for one more run, and they kind of had that super team vibe. Now, they didn't show it for a large chunk of the regular season, especially in the Michigan game, until the playoffs. Is when you're looking at the teams this year and kind of like stacking them up, Ohio State I know is number 1, you got Bama, it's all the usual suspects. Is that a opinion that you agree with going from last year to this year, that it doesn't look like one team is necessarily head and shoulders above everybody else?
Yeah, I mean, last year we headed in with Ohio State and I would say Ole Miss both kind of going all in different ways. Obviously, Ole Miss brought a lot more in the portal, but both of those teams seemed like they were spending a lot to put that roster together, and it paid off for both of them in different ways. They were the top 2 teams at SP Plus. Ole Miss managed to blow a couple games they couldn't blow, managed to little jams they couldn't wriggle their way out of, and they missed the playoff just barely. But if they'd made it, they could have been dynamite in the playoff as well. And Ohio State obviously had one mulligan to spare and used it, and then suddenly peaked at the right time. But I think, yeah, we're in a situation. We were in it last year, and we're in it again this year, where you look at the projected ratings. Ohio State's 1.5 points ahead of number 2 Alabama. That's fine, but it's not like 5 points, and they're not in the mid 30s in these ratings. You got the top 9 all separated by basically a touchdown, and then the next like 10 or 12 are basically separated by a touchdown. So it's there's a lot of uncertainty baked in here, and I do think that's an area where, the teams that have recruited the most consistently awesome in recent years, which are probably Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia still, they're at the top of the ratings, but they're not really far ahead of a lot of other teams that have managed to, maybe close the gap a little bit by using the portal just right or whatever. There are a lot more tools at your disposal if you're trying to build a good team right now. And that's really, really fun, even if, we didn't get any evidence last year that the very most talented teams aren't still going to win the whole thing.
Yeah, Bill, I got Toledo, Mississippi State, Maryland, Liberty, Navy, Army, Cincy, Cal, Michigan State, UTSA are all ahead of Oregon State, who come in 73rd, way down there in the SP Plus, our Beavers. I am curious, though. I know you don't focus in on Oregon State as much as you do some of these other schools, but when you go through this, is there any takeaways going into the second year of Trent Bray? I know they got Malik Murphy. That was a big addition for them in the portal. They are returning some offensive talent. Defensively, I know that they hope that they can take a step. When you look at Oregon State, I guess, how much has it changed since Jonathan Smith's last year to where it's at going into year 2 with Trent Bray?
Yeah, first of all, how dare you? My focus on Oregon State is always very strong.
That's true. I give you that credit.
I think I think the biggest takeaway with that projected number 73 ranking is they were 97th last year. They kind of fell apart, especially on defense. The efficiency was still there. They could still run the ball pretty well, but passing was iffy. Defense was beyond iffy. So the fact that they're, the components are projecting them to improve by quite a bit, I do think that means something. And part of that is that, Malik Murphy does bring some, he threw for 2,900 yards last year. Didn't love Duke's offense, if we're being honest. And I think he's a better runner than he was asked to be in the Duke offense, especially. He ran like 7 times all year, not including sacks. But I'm curious. He's going to have a really, really experienced receiving core at his disposal. Hankerson's good. It does feel like the offense could rebound if the offensive line holds up at least. Defense, that's going to tell the tale. There's like 2 probably. Well, I was going to say unwinnable. Texas Tech is not unwinnable, but they're going to be, 2 touchdown projected underdogs in that game. Outside of Tech and Oregon, they're projected favorites or toss-ups in every single game on the schedule. So if you're ready to overachieve in some of the transfers hit on defense, then I think the ceiling's still pretty high for this team. I feel a little better about Oregon State than Washington State this year just because of the spectacular amount of change at Wazoo. I love basically making them, South Dakota State West, but I assume translation is going to take a little while.
Look at that, Dirt. We're 2 10-2 programs.
Look at us. We could win 10 games. You guys might win another conference championship this year.
Yeah, right,
we both
we will.
Pac-2 champs and Big Ten champs on this show. Bill Connelly is our guest. The S&P Plus model on ESPN. It's all free and available for everybody to read. He tweeted it out as well at ESPN_Bill C, ranking all the teams as a kind of spring wrap-up in college football. I'm curious about the Huskies this year. Bill, they had a up and down year, obviously, with Jed Fish in year 1. It was one where I'm sure Husky fan would argue could have been even better if they don't call a speed option to the short side of the field at the goal line against the Cougs. They come in at number 39. I was interested in the offensive rating there. I think they're 52nd, which they got a quarterback who they're pretty high on. They're returning their top wide receiver. Jonah Coleman's back for another year. What do you make of the Huskies, and is this a pop kind of year for them? Is there potential there for them to have a better season?
Yeah, the passing game was, run and pass. The big plays kind of vanished from 2 years ago. And that ended up being kind of a major issue because, obviously with Coleman, you're going to run the ball pretty well. But yeah, I'm curious about the big plays, and whether the receiving court, like guys like Omari Evans coming in from Penn State, he was really good when he caught the ball, but he caught 21 passes all year, averaged like 20 yards a catch and then, couldn't get open against good opponents. So curious how they scheme that and everything. But I kind of give Jed Fish the benefit of the doubt here. It took him a year at Arizona to really kind of click into place. But once he had what he needed, everything obviously clicked pretty well. Coordinator changes. We'll see how that all works. And obviously there are a ton of transfers on defense. But I do think, if the big play capabilities come back a little bit, whether it's because of Evans or just better familiarity among all the personnel, then it's kind of like Oregon State. There are like 2 or 3 games on the schedule that are you're going to be pretty solid underdogs in, but everything else is on the table outside of Ohio State, Michigan, and Oregon. It's going to be projected favorites in all the other games, maybe.
What do you make of the Sankey new playoff model noise? I know that's not necessarily up your avenue at all times, but it feels very loud right now. Sankey saying it's not his obligation to look after the game, just the SEC. Clearly the SEC and Big Ten are trying to take up all the playoff spots. What is Bill Connelly's takeaway of how this is like kind of killing the sport that we love so much, but we're all going to tune in and watch because we're sickos and we love it?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I never had to pay a single attention to a single word Greg Sankey or any of the other conference commissioners ever had to say again. I wish there was somebody actually in charge of the sport, so I didn't. So, because these are all propaganda arms. They are indeed. If Greg Sankey doesn't act in the interest of his presidents every single day, he'll get fired. So of course, like he has to say these things and do these things. I get it, but the system as a whole just stinks because they're the most powerful conferences, they do run the sport, and we could the last couple of weeks have been extremely disillusioning. As we kind of move towards 16 teams, I was hoping maybe they could be shamed out of the auto bids thing, and Greg Sankey certainly doesn't seem like he's really into the auto bids, but we still hear all these ideas about like double buys and this and that. Like, oh my God, it's 16 teams. There's a reason. Like every sport has a 16-team playoff. It's clean. It's easy. Just pick the number of conference champions you want, seed everybody else, and let's go. But the constant jockeying and politicking and everything just stinks, and I hate that it matters. There should be somebody outside of this group in charge of the sport and making these calls, and of course that's never been the case with college football.
All right, last one for you, Bill. Every year we have one of these teams. It starts in near the top of the list, and then they fade or sink like a stone. The numbers spit it out. They give you the top 10. Who's the most fraudulent team in your S&P Plus top 10 right now?
I was a huge Ole Miss advocate last year, and I thought, if they had sneaked into the playoff, they really could have done a lot of damage. I don't like this transfer haul at all. Like the reason they're projected, I think, ninth is because they were second last year. Like Lane Kiffin, we probably do not give him enough credit for how well he has done these last few years at Ole Miss. But then I just look at, maybe Austin Simmons is kind of ready to be a stud at quarterback, but I just look at the guys they lost and the guys they brought in, and feels like it's a downgrade just about everywhere. So that one's kind of tough for me to I guess they're 11th, actually. Never mind.
They're right there. They're right outside the top 10. That's fair.
That's right. I didn't pick a top 10 team. No, Ole Miss at 11. Michigan at 10 feels pretty ambitious, too, although we know that all they need is kind of a semi-competent quarterback, and they could be in pretty good shape. But, yeah, those two are pretty tough. Otherwise, I think it was a pretty logical list for the most part. Even if you don't believe Alabama at number 2, I know why it says that on paper. So, yeah, I had to go down to number 10 and 11 to find some genuine question marks.
I'm not a big betting man on the futures, but if I was, and I'm that. There's some Clemson tasty ticket stuff there. I think they are set up right now, I think, to have a really special season and maybe be in that top, 2-3 ranking at the end of the season.
I sort of agree. I agree that if they're ever going to do that, it's this year. But I'm still, like, from a number standpoint, they're a little further down than they're going to be in the polls. And I think the major reason for that is we're using this tiny sample of like 3 deep passes against Texas as a reason to suddenly believe that they're going to make big plays again when it's been like 5 years since they did. So that's kind of my one concern is it's like an old school bowl bump for Clemson in a way, even though they lost. And we'll see if they're capable of it. We're going to see it this year, but I'm not buying in all the way yet.
Yeah. Where does your team rank? You can go find the article at ESPN.com. Of course, ESPN_Bill C on Twitter. He's got it out, available to read. It's great to talk college football. It's great to think we're less than 100 days away from the start of the year. Always fun catching up with you, Bill. Thanks for the time, and let's do this again soon.
Sounds good.
There you go. Bill Connelly of the S&P Plus model. Did you know that the Daily Ticker is brought to you by our wonderful friends at Pelican Brewing Company? And you can experience your hops differently with Pelican's new hop-infused hard seltzer. Hard hops, blackberries infused with strata hops, made with real blackberries, and it's available now at a store near you. Only 10 wins for my Ducks. The disrespect.
10 wins for my Beavs.
Unbelievable.
Playoff Beavs against playoff Ducks.
Playoff Beavs, playoff Ducks.
Ooh, jumps in the pool first.
Ooh, I'm jumping in that pool. I'll jump in that pool as long as we don't lose. Don't lose that game.